I've been contemplating doing this for a while, but to be honest, I didn't know how I wanted to do it. Just do like a top five songs from each soundtrack, or top three songs from each soundtrack. But instead, if y'all want to see that, let me know. But instead, I decided to do a top. I wanted to rank every 2K soundtrack in tiers in 2K history. I wanted to, well, not in history, but I wanted to start with 2K10 because that was my first 2K up until present day. I listened to this soundtrack a couple times this past week to decide where I wanted to rank these songs. Where these soundtracks. We're gonna start with 2K. We're gonna go in order, starting with 2K10. This is a soundtrack that gotten lost over the years. When people talk about nostalgic soundtracks, they do not talk about 2K10. But 2K10 is definitely an A-tier soundtrack because it had songs such as "Top of the World," "The Champion by the Game." Amazing was the playoffs theme song for that playoff run. So you kind of sense that song was gonna be in the game. Roots was another song that got me hype when the game came out. "Top of the World," whenever that song would play, I would literally feel like I was on top of the world. We got "Waving the Flag," "When I Get Older I Will Be Stronger." That's what that song I used to get. I was 9-10 years old when this, and I used to get so hyped listening to that, man. Like "Rock This" by Al Capone is another song that I like. "Electric Feel." Like back then, the soundtrack during this time, you could tell 2K really pride themselves on their soundtracks, and like what made the game so great. Just the little things. 2K11 soundtrack also belongs in the A tier. You had songs such as "Drake Over." That's the song that pretty much introduced me to Drake, but it's the clean version. So yeah. Ron Artest had "Champion." Was he metal? Yeah, he was still Ron Artest. After we won against the Celtics, he made that song. "Little by Little" was another decent one. "Symphonies." My favorite, we got "Downtime" by Kiss in Space. My favorite song from that soundtrack was "Pouring It On" by Deuce Jones. I believe that's how you say his name. Next up, we got 2K12. 2K12, the lockout really ruined the potential of the gameplay itself, but soundtrack, it belongs in the S tier. This is still when 2K pride themselves on their soundtrack. You got songs like "Now's My Time," "Today's My Day." Like listening to this over again, it was like, bro, that song got me up. Like, okay, I need to get on my grind. Now's my time. Stop making excuses. You had Eminem, that Eminem song, what was it? "Fast Lane." Yep, you had that. That was another good one. "Here We Go" was a good one. "Sideways." It has some great bangers on this game. This is back when 2K was, like I said, the only thing that sucked is the gameplay. 2K13. It's another S tier. But this soundtrack, in my opinion, 2K13, greatest soundtrack of all time, because you had Jay-Z behind the scenes, being the one to put it all together. You had songs, a lot of the songs was his. "Blow the Whistle." Growing up, I loved that song, but now it's tolerable. I'm not big into it now. "I Ain't No Joke" was another one that was like "Pump It Up" by Jay-Z. The freestyle he did. What's another one? I'm looking at them now because I didn't make notes. I didn't necessarily make notes for this video. I'm just looking at. Okay, you had "Run This Town." "Amazing" was on this game as well, but it was also on 10, so I'm not really counting it as a standalone song for this one. Coldplay had a song on here that was pretty good. "We Major." This is actually how I found out about "We Major." It's through this soundtrack, actually. This soundtrack has had a lot of Jay-Z bangers. Jay-Z, in my opinion, greatest rapper of all time. So I really, really enjoyed this one. 2K14, B tier soundtrack. The soundtrack. 2K13, the soundtrack carried the game. I forgot to mention that. The gameplay wise for 13, it wasn't all that great. 14, the soundtrack is a B tier soundtrack. This LeBron James actually produced this one. So you had a lot of hits from this year, like We Them Boys, Started From the Bottom. I found out about Big Crit, Too Cool to Be Southern. I knew about Big Crit before this, but that's that song. Not Afraid was on here. Long Run, one of my favorite songs that was on this soundtrack. All of the Lights, man. Can't Hold Us. What happened? I mean, I watched a video recently about what happened to Macklemore, man. Woo, this soundtrack. But back to the soundtrack. That soundtrack was lovely because it took you in the mind of like, okay, this is what LeBron listens to before games. So that part felt kind of felt cool in that regard. 2K15. Pharrell did this one. This one didn't really have too many memorable ones. You had The Whoop, that Lauryn Hill song. That was pretty much my only memorable song for this one. I put it in the C tier. The songs were solid, but they weren't memorable. Let's put it that way. They had solid songs that weren't memorable. Let's just put it like that. 2K16, probably the second greatest soundtrack. Then I believe 2K12 may be after that, but 2K16 also had one of the better soundtracks. The greatest song of all time, in my opinion. Even though I didn't know what they were saying. AIO. Just imagine walking around Rivet City and AIO is playing. Man, it got you hype. Even though you don't know what they're saying. Cults of Personality, that CM Punk theme song was on there. Like, you had this Bugatti, they ran that song. People ran that song out when it came out, but I think it's some songs that was really on here, man. Like this soundtrack was the truth. 2K17, man, nostalgic. Probably memories wise, nostalgia wise, is my favorite 2K, but you can't really remember. I don't know if I want to. I think it belongs up there. At first I was gonna say A tier, but it's another S tier soundtrack, bro. Like, whoa, you had such songs. I don't know who actually produced this one. I don't remember. Come and see me for once. Come and see me for once. You don't wanna come to me. I can't sing, but that song. What else we had that really comes to mind? You had Heart of the City. That was like the intro song to my career. Pop Style. Actually, Club Going Up on a Tuesday was on here. Like, we had bangers on this game as well. Let's be honest, nothing about 2K18 was memorable, but they had songs that was hype for its time in there, like Lil Uzi, Nah, Do What I Want. Like, 2K always find a way to get them hits in there, but 2K18, nothing was nostalgic about it. Let's be real, nobody want to remember 18 for nothing, but the soundtrack, it was solid. Let's put it that way. The soundtrack was solid. 19, this is when you start reaching a point where you at some point throughout the year you start muting the soundtrack. You had Travis Scott. You had some Travis Scott in there. But other than that, this soundtrack wasn't really memorable. If we being real, like, Really Got It was cool. That was one of my favorite songs. Like, when it first came out is when I heard it. Mo Bamba by Sheck West. I mean, Mo Bamba, people ran that song out anyway. So, like, the song is more popular than the dude that it's about. 2K19 soundtrack wasn't that great. 2K20 is when they started adding like those sound, which is a smart idea. Like, you add to the soundtrack throughout the year to add like more of that like, you know, so you don't run out of it. So Strawberries, Juice WRLD, Hear Me Calling was cool. What else come to mind? Well, I can't really think of none. I'm gonna pull up the soundtrack. 2K20 also had. 2K20 had some nice songs. Dope by Toby. I don't know how to say his last name. I don't want to butcher it. So Uptown Vibes was pretty cool. Like, this soundtrack was overall solid actually. Like I'll put it in the B tier. Let's be real. I to this day hadn't listened to the next gen or current gen soundtrack. I believe it's the same thing, but I don't listen to it because, you know, I'm a content creator now, so I have to mute it because Pop Smoke Dior is on there. You didn't know that, but let's be real, all Pop Smoke songs sound the same. There's no knock on them. I'm just saying, to me they all sound the same. RP though, rest in power. The soundtrack, I didn't really listen to those that much. I'm not gonna bash the soundtracks. I'll just put them in the D tier since I don't know much about them. But hey, that's the end of the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below your favorite soundtrack of all time.